Hey, welcome collectors of all ages. This is Mike with J. Hawker Vintage Cards, and I'm recording this late Tuesday night. The World Series is just going on. As I'm down here, it looks like Toronto is going to beat the Dodgers. But tomorrow, Wednesday, October 29th, will be the anniversary of my 54th trip around the sun. Now, I'm not a big birthday celebration guy, but I was thinking, do I want to do a video for my birthday, and what should it be about, or what could it be about? And I really didn't have any ideas until yesterday. I was at work. I watched a video from John Wadebog's fan, and he titled it, "Why Do I Collect Baseball Cards?" I love content like this because when you see that title, you know that all of us are going to have a different answer to that. There's no right or wrong answer, right? But as I started watching that video, I kind of felt sorry in a way for John. But that was selfish to think that way, because as I was listening to him talk about how he's not a big baseball history person, doesn't do a lot of reading on that, I'm the total opposite of that. But that's what makes this hobby great. We can all be totally different on not only what we collect, not only how we collect, but also why we collect baseball cards. So as I kept watching that video and listening to him and thinking how I would be responding to that question, I got a call out of the blue from Matt Straight Race Cards. He was just calling to see how I'm doing. You know, I've had some health issues, and Matt's just, just like John, he's just a genuinely good guy. And Matt and I talked briefly about John's video, and I said, hey, you know what? I think this might be a great topic for a birthday video for me. Why do I collect cards? And he agreed. He's like, that would be a great topic. So instead of me just rambling on and talking for an hour, which I easily could do, I thought I would show all of you why do I collect baseball cards through cards from my collection. Let the cards kind of tell the story. I'll kind of talk along with it. But I thought that would be the best way because, see, for me, baseball cards have always been a constant in my life. I'm going to be 54 years old tomorrow, and I've been collecting since I was 10. So 44 years of my life, I've been a die-hard baseball collector. And even the periods where I kind of slacked off, I've never completely gone away. So it's always been constant for me. So with that being said, let's go ahead and I will tell you why I collect baseball cards through cards from my own collection. Well, I guess if I'm going to talk about why I collect baseball cards, I need to start from the beginning. But not when I technically became a baseball card collector in 1982, when I was 10. You got to go back to 1974. See, for whatever reasons, I don't know. I never asked. I never thought to ask. I wish I would have. But I was probably in a grocery cart whining as a 3-year-old or maybe a 4-year-old. And my mom probably reached over to the stuff where all the candy and stuff is and probably got me a pack of 1974 tops, just maybe to shut me up. I don't know. But in that pack of cards, and I kept those cards forever. We used to put them in a toy box, and there's a little cubby hole that they stored in. I took them out and played with them and stuff, but there's 2 cards that stood out. And this kind of, at the very beginning, shows how much that baseball cards have been just intertwined and always seem to work out for me. And there's all these weird coincidences and connections that not only with the cards themselves, but with my life and with my future. So the very first card that I remember getting that just stuck with me, that I remember seeing as a kid from that pack. Now, of course, I don't remember at the time, but as I was growing up, 6, 7, 8, and started, this card just fascinated me because it was a left-handed person, and that was just weird to me, and it was Jerry Koosman. So that card always stuck out. And that's the actual card from that pack. And this is the actual card from that pack. One of the most badass baseball cards of all time. Nolan Ryan. So it's just, let's trying to get the thing to not be so blurry. But, you got the Koosman and the Ryan, and you know where this is going to end up. But, those were just cards I played with. Well, in 1980, as a stocking stuffer, my mom bought me some. Assuming it was my mom, she did all the toy shopping. But my mom got a couple packs of football, a couple packs of baseball, and in the pack of baseball cards was this, another badass card. Nolan Ryan. Now, by this time, I knew who Nolan Ryan was. I'd actually seen him. My dad took me to a Kansas City Royals game against the Angels. I need to go back and figure out what year it was, but I knew who Nolan Ryan was. Again, I didn't collect cards as a stocking stuffer. 2 years later, 1982, some of my friends, I'm a 10-year-old now, got me into collecting, got me interested in collecting. So my mom took me downtown in Lawrence, Kansas to the local Woolworths, and I got a couple packs of cards. Lo and behold, the first pack of cards, 1982 Topps, Nolan Ryan. In the next pack, 1982 Topps Highlight, Nolan Ryan. Now, my buddies had always told me, of course, this is just a few months into it, that you got to collect somebody. You got to find some guys to collect. Now, I have a very passionate personality, and within months, I blew past all of my friends in terms of my passion for collecting cards, and that passion has stayed with me ever since. But Nolan Ryan, because of those cards, became my guy. So while everybody else collected George Brett, my guy was Nolan Ryan. Now, also, I collected George Brett. Of course I did. But Nolan Ryan became my guy. So as you can see, family was the catalyst from the very beginning, and friends. And speaking of friends, a great hobby friend, even though I've never met him, is John Mangini. When I saw this shirt, I had to get it. And again, how things just kind of interweave and connect. I got this shirt. Scott Reindeer Studios created it. This shirt's probably different than the color, but it's the color for me. But right after I ordered this shirt, John Mangini created a video saying he needs 3 cards from the 1938 Gaudy set to complete his collection. Now, I'm watching that. I'm like, oh, that's cool. But when he named the 3 cards, I was like, wow, I have one of those cards, or one in my entire collection. And I just got it because it looked cool. It was one of the 3 cards Mangini needed. So I immediately messaged him and say, I've got one. And so he asked me how much I wanted for it. I told him. He said, done. And then he said he Venmo'd me the money, but he added a little bit to it. He added a lot to it. And John, tip of the cap, another Reindeer Studios cap to you, because it's again, what a great hobby we have. Just a great community that we have. But going back to why I collect, family, as you can see, is important to me. Well, in the last few years, I really wanted to try to figure out who my great-grandfather's favorite player was. I did an entire video on this, but through some detective work and a lot of research and talking to some family members, I found out that it was Zach Wheat. My dad never talked much, and my dad and mom were both huge sports fans. My dad was a fan of the Chiefs, the Royals, and of course the Kansas Jayhawks. But he didn't talk much about guys he grew up admiring or liking, except for one player, and it was this guy, Mickey Mantle. This was my dad's favorite player. Now, my mom was always the person who kind of spoiled me, and my dad was the polar opposite. I mean, he didn't grow up with toys and playtime. For him, I mean, they had to work in the fields, the gardens, and do schoolwork, and that was basically it. My dad never bought me a card ever, except for one time. He went to a garage sale on a Saturday morning, came home, woke me up, took me into the dining room, and long story short, he handed me some cards. And then the very first card at the top was a beautiful 1961 Roberto Clemente. And this is the card. I sent it off for grading this year. And he came back from the kitchen with an entire lunch sack full of 61 Topps and a few 62s, just in beautiful shape. And I've sold off a lot of them over the years. Not this one. If I had to save one card from my collection forever, this would be the one. Again, my dad never bought me a card before this, or cards I should say, because it was a whole sack full of them. And he never bought me cards after this, and he was always trying to get me to get rid of them. Now, my dad was the first person, obviously, who taught me anything about baseball. And we'd play catch in the backyard, and he could throw a knuckleball, which fascinated me. Well, about the time that I started collecting cards, 1982, in Lawrence, Kansas, we got WTBS. We got the Braves. We didn't have WGN for a number of years after that, but we got the Braves. So the Braves, other than the Royals, became a team I loved to watch. or love to root for. Also the Astros with Ryan, but I never got to see them play very often. But I got to see the Braves all the time. And lo and behold, who pitched for the Braves? Knuckleballer, Phil Niekro. So I started collecting Phil Niekro cards. Now, I was kind of tall and gangly, played center field when I played baseball. Eventually I moved over to right, just like another member of the Braves, Del Murphy. So after Nolan Ryan, and just about tied with George Brett, Del Murphy became my favorite player growing up. Now, my sister also got involved, keeping on the theme of the family, and I got to show you this picture. I'm going to cover her face for privacy, and also for some reason she decided to get a haircut that made her look like a poodle. She had a perm for a brief period of time. I was an oops. So my sister is 11 years older than me. This sister is. And I wrote on the back, Kim 22 and Mike 11, holding Nolan Ryan and George Brett baseball cards. That's an 83 Donruss George Brett, who is my sister's favorite player, and I'm holding an 83 Donruss All-Stars Nolan Ryan. Now, it may be hard to see those, but you know what? That's okay, because I actually have those cards still. So there's the George Brett. Again, I liked oversized even as a kid. And then there's the Nolan Ryan. Now, another thing that I love to do and why baseball cards, I would like to collect them, is I'm a huge baseball history buff. So I know stuff about all the Hall of Famers. I love the Hall of Fame discussions. I love arguing with people about Hall of Fames. It's got to be sensitive doing that. But I like to collect cards of Hall of Famers, guys like Hank Aaron. And I like to pick up cards of the Duke Snyder. But I also like to pick up cards of great players who aren't in the Hall of Fame, guys that I feel should be in the Hall of Fame. Guys like, let's say, Ken Boyer or Bill Freehan. And of course, Louis Tiant. And here's a dark horse candidate that a lot of you don't know about, but you should. Bob Johnson. Outstanding player. And I think most of you would agree with this guy, Thurman Munson. And then my personal favorite Hall of Fame candidate, a guy I've been, since I was a teenager, rooting to get into the Hall of Fame, is the great Vada Pinson. And then I've also rejoiced when guys I wanted to get into the Hall of Fame do get elected to the Hall of Fame. Guys like Tony Oliva. And guys like Gil Hodges. And this is a special one to me because I grew up in Lawrence, Kansas. Bill James, the great sabermetrician, I think he still lives there. But as I was growing up there, that's when he really became famous for his baseball abstracts and his theories and his thoughts. And I read all of his stuff as a kid, and I loved a book. Now, this came out when I was an adult, but I loved his book. It started out hard copy, Politics of Glory, which is a horrible title. But when it came out on paperback, it changed to Whatever Happened to the Hall of Fame. And there's a great section about this player who wasn't in the Hall of Fame at the time. I knew very little about him, but I started really studying about him. Read that book and you'll learn about him. But this guy should have been in one of the first classes elected to the Hall of Fame. And he should have been put in there by the Old Timers Committee, but they didn't know what the hell they were doing. But it's George Davis. Absolutely incredible player. I also like to collect guys just for weird reasons, like their name. Matt Batts. Now, I wondered if he ever went by Matty Batts. I don't know. I probably would have called him Matty Batts. But I also like to just pick out other reasons to collect cards. Do you guys remember these? I've shown these. I know Mangini has shown these. I think White Sox Collector uses this for the background for cards, which I do as well. But I love looking through this and dreaming about owning all these cards. But out of all these cards on here, just by the looks that I really liked, and you might see another one of these coming up, I just realized. But it was this one. Right there. The handsome Christy Mathewson. And I love that card. I always dreamed as a little kid of having that card someday. Goals, right? Sometimes you reach your goals, sometimes you don't. But in this case, I did. I got my Maddie. That's a pre-war card, but it wasn't my first pre-war card. I got this pre-war card when I was a kid. It is of Huey Jennings. I don't know how old I was, but I was really excited to get this card because obviously it's old, and I could not wait growing up until this card hit 100 years old so I could celebrate it. I love to collect cards of heroes and guys who sacrificed for the country. And there's a lot of guys who served in World War II. A lot of them did stuff like play baseball, did recruiting and stuff, but there are guys who fought and fought well and fought bravely. And so they're heroes to me, not only on the baseball field, but off the baseball field as well. Guys like Warren Spahn. Guys like Bob Feller. And of course, Teddy Ballgame, Teddy Williams. Now, I'm a Royals fan, and the Royals don't have a lot of history, and they certainly don't have a lot of great players. They've got one guy who really is just a pure Royal Hall of Famer, George Brett. So I like to collect cards of everybody. It doesn't matter the team. So my Missouri guys give me a lot of feedback. Not feedback, a lot of, I don't know what, I think some of them think I'm a closet Cardinals fan. I'm not, but I love the Cardinals history. So I love to collect cards of guys like Bob Gibson. And of course, if you watch my videos, you know I love collecting cards of Stan Musial. But I also love to collect cards of guys who, to me, are not only Hall of Famers, but like top tier Hall of Famers. Guys who should be revered by history and revered by the hobby community, but they're not. And I'm talking about guys like Frank Robinson. This is another card that came out of the stack of cards my dad got in that sack. And that's a beautiful card. And then this guy I have always admired as a player. And when and it's Eddie Matthews. You know, when Eddie Matthews came up in the early 50s, about the same time Mantle and Mays, this was the guy that baseball people said, hey, he has a chance to break Babe Ruth's career home run record. Not only did he not do that, of course, his teammate Hank Aaron did. And of course, by this time, his career had been kind of winding down. He kind of has that look on his face like, damn, what could have been? I mean, he was hindered by the park that he played in. But just, you know, Robbie and this guy, just two underappreciated players. Now, I also like to collect cards of guys who just exude courage and dignity and historical, cultural significance. Guys like Jackie Robinson, who I just noticed is on this one, the cover of this one. And also his teammate, Roy Campanella. 53 Bowmans. I know some people don't like him because they don't have the team name or the player name. If you know your baseball history, you don't need to have that on the front of the card. All you need to do is see the image, and you should know who these guys are, right? If I was a kid when this card came out, it probably would have made me cry if I was a little kid when I saw that. Talk about courage. You guys have seen this one. But again, just the stories, the things that you just pull from all aspects that inspire you not only to collect cards, but to inspire you in your life. And you can even collect cards of players and managers that you hated as a kid. Guys like Billy Martin. And his best buddy, Reggie Jackson. Another guy who's pretty underappreciated right now. I like to collect cards of guys who, I just love looking at stats and just seeing the images of guys, and it's like, wow, their stats are almost identical for their career. But when you look at them, they're total polar opposites. Guys like the killer, Harmon Killebrew. Short, stout, right-handed hitter, very violent swing. Check out his career's stats to this guy. Left-handed, Willie McCovey. Stretch. Tall, lean, long looping swing. But their stats are almost identical, but you cannot picture them as looking the same as a player. I like to collect cards that just look cool. 71 Topps Ken McMullen. That's Yankee Stadium. the flagpole and the monuments in the background. Because, believe it or not, those used to be in play. I don't know. Please let me know if you know of any other actual card, like from game action, that shows the monuments of Yankee Stadium in the background. I don't know. Speaking of Yankee Stadium, I don't care who you are. If you don't think this is one of the most beautiful cards ever made, you need your eyes checked. This is another favorite of mine because he was a favorite of my favorite youth baseball coach, who is Native American and taught at Haskell Indian Nations University in Lawrence, Kansas. But he was a big fan of this guy, which made me a big fan of this guy, Allie Reynolds. Look at that card. If that isn't beautiful, I don't know what is. You can see the stadium in the background. Is that not beautiful? I mean, what a gorgeous card. And, you know, the fronts of the card is what most people look at, but I'm one of those nerds. I like to look at the back of cards. And once I got back into the hobby and realized these existed, I fell in love with the back. The polar bear backs. Hall of Famer Vic Willis. And look at the beautiful back on that polar bear. Love that card. There's not a lot of guys from my hometown that play baseball, but I pick up the ones that I know of. Guys like Ralph Houck, who obviously became more famous as a manager than he did as a player. I'm from Kansas, and who better to pick up a card from Kansas than the big train, Walter Johnson. Now, obviously, I don't have a Walter Johnson's Playing Days card, but my number one goal card, the card that I want to get at Strongsville more than anything else with my buddies, is the the T206 Walter Johnson portrait. That's the one I really want. Now, I pick up some weird stuff, some weird cards, and I'll just kind of wrap this up with these two. If I was starting a team from scratch, and if most of you were starting a baseball team from scratch, you guys would probably pick this guy, Babe Ruth, and it would be hard for me not to. And of course, this represents the kind of the quirky stuff that I like to collect, like the 3D cards from Kellogg's. But the player I would want to the player I'd want to put on my team more than any other, because I think out of all the great players in baseball history, this guy would be a superstar in any era. The dead ball era, the 30s, the 40s, 50s, the 60s, 70s, 80s, all the way up to today. And that is Honus Wagner. Now, I have resigned myself to, I never want to say never, but I'll probably never have a Honus Wagner Playing Days card. But I got a coach card. And for me, that's good enough. So, long story short, the Cliff's Notes version of why I collect baseball cards, it makes me happy. It makes me fun. It's been my constant. So, I'm going to do a little bit of a poetic license. So, please forgive me and try not to throw up in the back of your throat when I do this. And I might have to read this off a little bit to make sure I don't flub it, but baseball's always been there for me. Baseball cards, I should say. When I was sad as a kid, I had my cards. When I was happy as a kid, I had my cards. When I needed stress relief, I had my cards. When I have a goal about something, I had my cards. That's what I looked towards. So for me, I can't imagine a life without my baseball cards. I just can't. And when I've been in my darkest times of my life, it was baseball cards and you, the community, that brought me out of my dark times. So I'm going to take a little bit of a poetic license, and to avoid copyright infringement. I would love to show the video, but I want this video to stay on there. So I'm going to kind of tinker with a speech made by a character named Terrence Mann from one of the greatest baseball movies of all time, Field of Dreams, played by the great James Earl Jones. I can't watch the end of that movie anymore. The scene where Ray plays catch with his dad. You see, I had a rough relationship with my dad growing up. We clicked, or we didn't click, we clashed a lot. We had good times. And looking back, some great sports memories. And you know, he just had that personality where he could be a mean hard ass and he could just be an ornery fun guy. But we clashed a lot. And I always promised myself that I would not have that type of relationship with my son if I had a son someday. And I was every bit as hard on my son as my dad was on me. And my son's not in my life anymore. He chose to cut me and my entire family off in 2022. So I can't watch that scene where they play catch. But baseball cards have been my therapy. This community has been the best therapy I could ever have. So again, I'll take some poetic license here, so please bear with me. So again, this is a speech by the character Terrence Mann towards the end of Field of Dreams. The one constant through all the years, fellow collectors, has been baseball cards. America has rolled by like an army of steamrollers. It's been erased like a blackboard, rebuilt and erased again. But baseball cards have marked the time. These cards, this game, is a part of our past. They remind us of all that once was good, and it could be again. That's why I collect baseball cards. Until next time, keep on enjoying collecting.